It actually astonishes me some people's lack of understanding of the cinematic form and how it works. Camera movement. So I was listening to this podcast the other day and they were talking about, well, this shot. And they said that it's an unmotivated camera move. More specifically, they said it's a unmotivated camera move, but it just somehow works. And I was like, what? Oh, you don't know what you're talking about, because you think it's unmotivated when in actuality it's extremely motivated. But then I got to thinking, and to most people's understanding of motivated versus unmotivated camera movement, it just means that the camera is moving without someone moving in the frame. And that's just not what a motivated versus unmotivated camera move is. I mean, we all know what an unmotivated camera movement is. It's that aimless camera that just wanders around for no particular reason at all. Most of the time, it's to keep the audience's attention when something uninteresting is going on screen. Unmotivated camera movements is a symptom of bad writing and bad directing, because if you can't keep the audience's attention, you have to move it to try to make the frame seem more interesting than it actually is. It sometimes is used to mask bad writing because the scene is poorly written and the dialogue that's going on is just ugh. And it can also be used to mask bad directing because the director doesn't know how to block the actors to make the scene more interesting. Then you have motivated camera movements like this, where the camera is moving because the characters are moving. It's your walk and talks, it's your pans, it's your tracking shots. It's obvious why the camera is moving, and it feels more natural because the characters within the scene are moving as well. A lot of y'all motherfuckers think that's where camera movement stops, or motivated camera movement stops, I should say. And it's just not. This scene is extremely motivated, even without the character moving. But I'll get back to that. Give me 2 seconds. See, camera movement is actually an important part of cinematic storytelling. And one of the more powerful ways of using it is to reveal information. It's the director's connection to the audience to help them move along the story. Take this example from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Now, the camera does move motivated when characters move, but it also reveals information. Both information that we should have and information about the character's emotional states. Take this shot, for example. The camera moves back and reveals Indiana Jones's curiosity after he seemingly doesn't want anything to do with the Holy Grail, which is followed up by this question.
Why don't you try my father?
We already have. Your father is the man who's disappeared.
But then you have this character moving away from Indiana Jones, and the camera moves along with him. Now, on the surface, it just seems like the camera's moving because he is moving, but in actuality, he's pulling Indiana Jones's curiosity along with him. It's almost like a magnet drawing Indiana Jones in. And then it's revealed that he's actually pulling him towards an important part of the story, which is this manuscript that they begin talking about. It's all a bunch of movement to get the audience curious like Indiana Jones is curious, but to also show Indiana Jones's curiosity moving along. But again, that's easy. Everybody knows Steven Spielberg is the master of moving the camera. He's the best of the best. You can also use the camera to move through space in order to reveal character, like in Boogie Nights. This is one of the most brilliant wonders in the history of cinema because it sets up all of the main players of this film. The camera's just flowing through the space, moving to show who these people are. And because this is the opening scene of the movie, we don't necessarily know how important they are to the story yet, but we are getting all of this information instantly. But all of that is, again, easy. Where it gets a little tricky is when people start moving the camera for emotional purposes. I think this is where people get a little confused by motivated and unmotivated movement. For instance, in a traditional sense, a push-in is never, ever motivated. That is if you're talking about motivating movement through movement. But it is emotionally motivated. I mean, look at all of these push-ins and tell me that they're not pulling you in, even outside of the context of the story. Just this little clip of these people being pushed in on has an emotional effect on you as an audience member. One of my favorite examples of a push-in is from Angels with Dirty Faces by Michael Curtiz, who, next to Spielberg, is probably the best ever at moving the camera. James Cagney's Rocky Sullivan is a gangster who the kids in the neighborhood look up to. They idolize him and put him on a pedestal that he really doesn't need to be on. And in fact, a lot of them are thinking about going into a life of crime just like him. But Rocky is not a bad person. He's a victim of his circumstances, and the film goes out of its way to show that. One of his best friends growing up has become a priest who's mentoring the boys that look up to Rocky. Spoiler alert, Rocky gets caught and is eventually sentenced to execution. And his friend the priest requests one thing, and that's that he shows the children that life of crime is not glamorous and doesn't end well. Now, Rocky, on the surface, is against this because he's hard as nails, he's tough, he doesn't want to show any sign of weakness. His character throughout the film has been shown as one that actually cares for these boys and actually cares for their well-being. So when it's time for him to be executed, he puts on a performance, a show, to act like he's afraid of being executed. Not because he actually is, but for the sake of the boys, to see him going out like a coward and see that the life of crime that they're idolizing is not actually as glamorous as it seems. Then you get this pushing on the priest, who thought that Rocky wasn't actually going to do it. You see, when I give you the context of the motivation of the push, the emotional weight becomes more heavy. That in itself is motivation, and it makes the scene more poetic and beautiful. But it's not just dollying in or out that can be emotionally motivated. A pan can and a truck left to right or a boom up and down also can be emotionally motivated. A great example is this movement from left to right from Ozu, who's notorious for not moving his camera. Ozu strips away the artifice of cinema and all of its tools to give you a slice of life. He's very particular with his compositions and the way he places the camera to show his stories. It's simple, it's geometric, and it's emotionally poignant. So when he actually does move the camera, it's almost jarring for the audience. This movement from Tokyo Story shows the passage of time, but also shows the realization for the characters of their aging. Emotional motivation is important, which this shot has a lot of, but before I get to that, I got one more thing that's important for motivating camera movement. We also need to pay attention to the audience's perspective. Sometimes a director will make the audience a part of the film and motivate the camera movement by the audience's curiosity. See, in this scene, I have my character ask this question.
You think he is? I mean, he's kind-hearted. He couldn't be a murderer.
Why's he got you meeting him here in the woods?
And then I move the camera like this.
It's not normal behavior. I didn't really think about that. Either way, I won't let you kill him. If you do, then
I'm just as fucked up as him. Really, I am.
Which on the surface is completely unmotivated, but it mimics the curiosity of the audience and of the character in the scene. Why does he have you meeting in the woods? It's like looking around like, oh yeah, we are in the woods. This is all taking place in an odd space. It's relevant camera movement that is motivated by what's going on in the scene. Now, back to this by Scorsese and Taxi Driver. No, this is not motivated by the movement of the character, but it is motivated by the audience and the emotion of the scene. This is a very awkward scene. It's when Travis is awkwardly trying to ask Betsy on another date, and it's not going so well, and it's being presented as secondhand embarrassment. So much so that the camera can't even bear to sit with him while he's on this call anymore, so it decides to move away. We as the audience feel that secondhand embarrassment, and this camera movement enhances and heightens that sense of awkwardness for us, all the while showing an objective emotion that's happening that he may not even realize himself. It is a motivated camera movement. No, it doesn't reveal information. No, the character doesn't move the camera, but it does have an emotional weight to it. And that, I would argue, is equally as important as moving the camera because a character moves. In fact, it might even be more important because every shot should have a sense of emotional weight that leads the audience along the story that's being told. And that's exactly what this does. It gives us a better depth and understanding of Travis Bickle's emotional state. And it is, in fact, a motivated camera move.